Welcome back to another episode on the J.A.T side. Today is a very special episode, and I have a very special guest joining me today for the third time on the J.A.T side. We have Coach Holly, and me and Coach Holly, we met at Brookwood. For those of you who have been listening for a while, but for those of you who are new, Coach Holly was at Brookwood my freshman and sophomore year, and that's when I met him. Now Coach Holly, as y'all can see, he's at Peachtree Ridge High School, and he's the head softball coach there. And when I first announced on social media that I would be doing this series, Coach Holly was the first person who told me he was interested, so I had to bring him on. But Coach Holly, you can go ahead and say a few things.
Yeah, Jalen, super excited to be on for the third time. Obviously been keeping up with you and what you've been doing, and really proud of you and the work that you're putting in, and just happy to help in any way I can and try to shed some light on whatever we're talking about today.
So what actually we're talking about today is how we can inspire unity in schools. And we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks here on the J.A.T side, talking about unity. And this series, obviously a long road, which is seeking unity without complete uniformity. And I think it's perfect to bring on somebody like Coach Holly, because not only is he involved in the school system, but he's involved in sports as well. And with that expertise and knowledge, he can help shed some light on just a few things about, what he sees and his wisdom and his experiences, and just how we can be unified as people who are so different, especially as young people. So the first subtopic we have for today is, how do we achieve unity in schools with high levels of diversity?
Yeah, so am I muted? Oh, okay, there we go. So being at Peachtree Ridge, being a part of Gwinnett County schools, you see a lot of diversity within those schools. I think Peachtree Ridge especially is a super diverse community. So trying to find that unity, it's been eye opening to me especially. But what I've realized throughout teaching and through coaching and what I'm doing, I think it's just honestly good to have conversations. I know that we have a kid on our baseball team from Venezuela. We have a kid on our team from South Korea. Like I personally think it's really cool to talk to those guys about what their background is, what their culture is like, and kind of trying to understand things from their perspective, things that I'm not used to. And it's the same thing in the classroom too. Obviously, we have a bunch of different kids in my classroom that have a lot of different backgrounds. So being able to understand what they go through in their lives, where they come from, what their background is, and their family history is super important. Just kind of keeping that open line of communication between them and me. But also, it's okay for me to share my background too. It helps them get an understanding of who I am, and it also helps me get an understanding of who they are. So, maybe they come into class and they're sleeping one day. Well, maybe I understand their background, so I understand why they're sleeping that day. Or maybe at the baseball field, somebody's got some family stuff going on. Or maybe it's a holiday that they celebrate that I don't celebrate. But it's just cool to be able to understand their background, know something about them and where they're from, and I think that's the first step in creating unity, is just having open conversations with people and being accepting to their background and who they are.
Yeah, I like what you said about, making an effort to hear and learn about their different kind of perspectives and the way that their culture, operates. And a couple weeks ago, when I had Dr. Outler on the J.A.T side, he kind of discussed a similar, point. And he said, basically to see other people as we see ourselves. And that's kind of a way of doing that, because you're taking the time to ask somebody, how they do things or how they feel about things, or what kind of different ways that, they're used to stuff being done. And that just helps people to feel like they're involved, help people to feel like they are a part of a community, and community unity, it's kind of one and the same. So the next subtopic we have for today is kind of the specific role of students in schools being unified, and I'll start on this one. Um, I'll say that, like, I would say, well, I'll go back to Brookwood last year. For me, we had so many different clubs and different ways that students could be involved, and it's not just sports, and it's not just the things that you think of like off the top of your head, but if you go deeper, you see that there's a lot more, um to school when you really search and look for it. And just like the clubs, that weren't just like school ran, there were student-led clubs, student-led organizations, and getting involved in those different things really helps to build that sense of unity and community. But I'll toss it over to Coach Holly.
Yeah, so clubs is obviously a big thing. But the role of students, I think, and I've just being who I am, like I see it a lot in the classroom. I see it a lot on the baseball field. I think it all correlates. Um, but like I've had kids in here come in and they talk crap about my softball team, or they talk crap about each other. Maybe somebody's on the JV basketball team and they talk crap about them being on JV. It happens a lot, and it's frustrating because it's a community, and so I've challenged a lot of my students. I challenge my softball players. I challenge my baseball players to make those kids feel just as important, because people in those roles, they have a lot more power than you think they might. But just supporting each other is super important. Knowing that somebody is on a JV team, but they're working to get to where you are. Like I think it's super important to uplift them and set an example for them, to try to get to where you are. But I've also challenged a lot of students this year to make it important to make themselves comfortable being in uncomfortable situations. I think now as a society, just based on young men, I think young men now think it's weird to have like bros, to go and tell your buddy that you love him, or go and tell your buddy, um, ask him how his day is, or give him a hug. Um, I think I'm trying to create that in my classroom, for a lot of these kids to create it on the field as well. But for the classroom, like I've challenged all of these kids to go get 4 to 12 hugs a day. And it's cool watching them come in here last week. I had some kids in this class ask each other, like, how many hugs have you gotten? They ended up standing up in class and giving each other a hug, which I mean I think is awesome. I think if people can think about those things and make them super important, I think unity and the role of students, it's all going to build to a better community or whatever you're involved in. So just kind of like I said, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, kind of doing things outside of the norm, um, but just building relationships with people and asking people how their day is, and doing little things like that, I think goes a long way in the classroom and on the field, or whatever you're doing in a club as a part of a school.
Yeah, I really liked what you said about, like, specifically, uplifting one another, because that's a very big part of being unified with, one person or a group of people. But when you're unified with people, you're like building people up as, you know, you are at a certain position, but you kind of lift people up to where you are, and make them, at least feel like they're equal to you. And at the end of the day, we are equal because we're all human. But sometimes we get so caught up in like the titles and the roles that we feel like, oh, this person is less than me or this person is higher than me because of simply a title or a domain that they may have. But when we have unity, everybody's seen as equal. Everybody's seen as the same person, no matter what type of name they have, or what weight that their name brings with them. Um, and that's a big thing. Like the example you gave in sports with a JV basketball player, like that's something that um, can go to many different things. But that was a really good example. I went to the Gwinnett Student Leadership Summit over this past summer with Brookwood while I was still there, and the former superintendent of Gwinnett County, he recently got demoted. But Calvin J. Watts, he spoke and he said one thing that really stuck with me, which was lift as we climb. And basically, he explained that to me, as you are on your personal journey of going to where you want to go and you're chasing your goals and your dreams and your aspirations, to lift other people up. So, speaking positively to other people, giving them encouragement, just building relationships with people. Um, that's one thing that I feel like if us as students, we all do, and we will create a stronger community and a stronger sense of unity. And the final subtopic we have for today is specific actions. Anybody in schools, whether it's students or faculty, we can take and to really achieve unity. So it's kind of building off of that last one, but just maybe getting a little bit more specific.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, it's making yourself comfortable, uncomfortable, being uncomfortable. But also, like I just think that Gwinnett County Schools is so interesting because you have the high school, you have your middle schools, you have your elementary schools, and you usually have your parks. So I think especially for athletes, it's important to go and get involved somehow at the middle schools or at the elementary schools or at the park. I know that I've made it pretty important as my role in the head coaching position for the softball team to try to get out to the park myself, to make relationships with the little ones coming up through the program. But I've also tried to encourage our girls to go out to the park too, and help them kind of realize the role and the power that they have when they show up. That they're there, and those girls look up to the girls that are on the high school team. Doing things like that. I'm trying to do some more things around this school. Everywhere I walk, especially on my softball field, I've got woods everywhere. I mean, there's trash all over the place. I would love to do something where I have our girls go through the community of this school and pick up some of that trash and do things like that. Um, Also, I think another good thing is just to if you're in the lunchroom, push your chair in. That's another little thing that's important. But I think that's all I kind of do coaching wise is I focus on the little things. The more that the little things mean to you as a person, I think it's kind of like a chain. If you start doing it, another person starts doing it, and then it kind of builds up over time. Um, but yeah, I'd say just doing the little things here and there in the community, in the school, on the field, whatever it is you're doing. One little thing can lead to a big thing over time.
Yes, sir. So, um, yeah, I love the little things stacking. You know, I like to use the phrase kind of stacking days, like every day try to do something to be better or try to make an impact every day. And when you kind of change your mindset and you shift the way shift your perspective, you can focus on just the smallest things, whether it's like maybe complimenting somebody or giving somebody encouraging message or just trying to be a good. Sometimes it's just listening to somebody, asking them how their day has been or asking them, how they've been feeling or just anything. And it's like we have to take the initiative, do that, because obviously, like you said, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, kind of taking the extra step to reach out and it may seem small to you, but it may be big to somebody else. And just as we close out today, I just have one more question. What I would say, what is one thing that you would want to see in schools that if everybody did, it would like just increase, um, just honestly the betterment of the school?
I mean, being in Gwinnett County for 3 years, there's been little things here and there that I've seen that I think make a positive impact. I know at Brookwood they did the High Five Fridays. As ridiculous as that may seem, some of those kids walk into school and get a high five with a big red hand, and they think it's awesome. Um, Another thing, I mean, especially teachers at Peachtree Ridge, we did something called Mug Hug, where you bring a random mug and it goes around to different teachers. We do staff shout outs, student shout outs, which I think is a really cool thing. Honestly, I think that's the biggest one. Just shouting out people that have done something important, or something that you think has made a difference, and letting them know that what they are doing is making a difference. Um, and I think I learned that from Shay Ralph, the Vanderbilt women's basketball coach. I know that after games, she has their players do um, player shout outs, which is, I mean, just a girl on the team shouting out one of her teammates. And I think that gives not only an incentive to that player, but just kind of a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose, that what they're doing in their life is important. So little things like that, just shouting people out, positive words of encouragement, positive talk. I think that always goes a long way with a lot of people.
Yes, I love that. And that is gonna basically wrap up today's episode. But before we do that, I want to congratulate Coach Holly on recently getting married. I didn't tell him I was gonna do this, but Coach Holly, you said you were proud of me at the beginning of this episode, but I'm proud of you. Marriage is a huge step in life, period. So I'm happy for you, and I wish you the best on your new journey and being unified with your woman. And that's unity right there. So so proud of you, Coach, and just want to thank you for joining me today for the third time on the J.A.T side. And until next time, we will be out.